morning, everyone. So I got to tell you a quick funny story. Just yesterday, I was flying in from Vegas because I was out at the Magic Conference, and I fired up the Wi-Fi as soon as my delayed flight got off the ground, and David sent me a quick iMessage, and he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm not there yet, but don't worry, I'll make it." And then he said, "What do you want your intro song to be?" And so I said, "Well, what do you have?" And he wrote one of those annoying emoticons with a smiley face and said, "Don't worry about it, I'll take care of it." And then I heard his first song as we were just sitting here, and I started to sweat because I really wasn't worried. I was really worried about what he was actually capable of given that first song. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I think that talking about mobile is probably the most exciting thing to talk about today. When you start to look at what mobile has done, it's completely altered our environments. This is a picture from a tweet in Seoul in which you see a courier service with 3 different mobile phones sitting in front of him. We now have mobile lanes to walk. And if that wasn't enough, we now have texting stairs, and of course they've also included the run in the middle. So mobile has done some pretty amazing things to our environment. And it's created platforms that have unprecedented scale. Facebook. Sheryl Sandberg on the latest earnings call stated that 1 in every 5 minutes spent on a smartphone is within a Facebook property. Amazon. Amazon is the owner of 70+ North American distribution centers. They're the largest cloud infrastructure in the world, and they're truly trying to drive frictionless commerce. Their most recent quarter, 44% of what they sold was third-party seller stuff they didn't own. They're a platform. Airbnb, 1 million stays per night in 2015. That's more than any legacy hotel operator. Alibaba. Walmart took how many years? Founded in 1962 to get to $485 million in total revenue. Their platform's done $400 billion already per year. WhatsApp, 30 billion texts per day. Globally, SMS only does 20. Uber. Uber everyone thinks about as a people mover, but it has no physical assets, and it's likely to move a lot harder into other things like food delivery, courier services, as you know. And then last, delivery services within the food segment. Caviar and Seamless are just a couple of the 2 that are now outpacing the number of phone orders per year. So what has this done? What it has done is it started our focus to shift to completely different things. It's moved from just the typical sales and the comps to everything that you see listed here in this word cloud. And what that's done is created a much more complex environment in which we operate in today. I like to look at this in a series of spheres. Left side, brand, right side, sales. Top side, stores, bottom side, digital. When we look at what historically we've cared about, this is pretty much what you've got. You've got TV, print, radio, outdoor, display, viral, video. It's all words we're familiar with. Then you start to layer in the next side. You've got PR, and you've got things like buy online, pick up in store. And you move a little bit in, and you've got the offline stuff around call center, store support. You move up from the bottom side. You've got a little bit more online stuff. But then as you start to look in the direct center, you've got mobile, you've got beacons or in-store, in-restaurant tech, and then you've got IoT. This environment is completely different from the previous environment. So let me give you a bit of context before I jump into the actual presentation of what I do on a day-to-day basis so that you know where some of these thoughts and this perspective is driven through. The first thing that I do is I run a children's wear brand as of April that the group that I'm part of owns. The second thing is I run the digital for the broader group Lamour. So this is a group of 15 or so brands, 5 of which we own, 10 of which we license. Some of the brand portfolio is there, ranging from Pink, New Balance, Joe Fresh. And then the last thing, which is the only reason why I enjoy all this stuff, is the startup junkie. So these are some of the advisory roles and mentoring roles that I've got. Some of these are actually in the audience. The bottom 3 are all apps or platforms. Okay, so we're going to start for the first 15, 20 minutes on the current state of mobile, where we are. A lot of stats, fast, they're coming at you. However, David's going to share all this so you can keep all this at the end. And then I'm going to jump into 3 specific pieces. The first one will be Intrigue, the second one will be immediacy, and then the third one will be frictionless. So on mobile. If you sit back and you think about restaurants and you think about retailers, they're going through this dramatic change. You don't have to pay attention to every earnings report. It's all the same. Offline spend, offline comps going down, online comps going up. Duh. EBITDA margins, net margins going down because they're now fulfilling a lot more through e-com. But each one of the ways in which we interact with retail or restaurants across stores, restaurants, brick and mortar, desktop, apps, mobile sites, has a different type of attractiveness not only to the retailer or the restaurant in 5 different ways. The way I like to look at this is from poor to good across these 5 different metrics. So let's take the first one, average basket. The average basket that retailers are seeing today within store is a fraction of that online today. My old company that I worked for, Hudson's Bay, Lord & Taylor, it was about 50% of what you saw online in the key doors. In the smaller doors, it was about 35 to 40%. So it's small, it's poor. Desktop, laptop, because of free shipping thresholds at $99 for a majority of the retailers, it's actually pretty good, what you end up seeing. However, that's trending down. Apps, still very, very good. It's your most loyal customer base for the most part, for most retailers. But it's also trending slightly down because of pressure through shipping thresholds coming down, easier returns, things like that. And mobile sites, it's not necessarily your most loyal customer, and oftentimes is a newer customer for you that's not willing to download your app, so it's not nearly as good. Sales. Again, same type of recurring themes. The majority of the sales come through brick and mortar today, as we all know. Desktop, it's kind of plateaued. It stayed a bit flat for most. Apps, it's on the upside. Mobile, it's on the upside. Here is the issue that's facing all the retailers today. Their profit generated through these 3 remaining, desktop, laptop, apps, and mobile sites, is all down. And the big reason for that is return rates are up across the board. They're making it easier for customers to take that impulse purchase and also return it for free. That product doesn't make it back into the supply chain to be resold in the retailers, so therefore their margins are crimped. So it's a big, big struggle, and mobile's driving a lot of that. So I hate to stereotype, but for the most part, each one of these types of ways in which we engage with the customer has a different type of customer trait. Again, you see a lot of the offline brick and mortar customer, leisure-based, researching. Then you start to move into desktop, laptop. They're likely a new customer of your customer base. Apps are higher loyalty. So that's what everyone's thinking about, talking about in the board meetings of the big retailers. So why, if we've got all this pressure and we know that profits aren't good, and driving people to our least profitable channel, mobile, why do we focus on mobile? Well, we focus on mobile for that crazy person who rises and starts their day with mobile. We focus on mobile for that crazy person who commutes and uses mobile to interact with your brand. We focus on mobile because that person then switches to a work laptop, and they're still interacting with your brand. And then that person may visit you, and they still have mobile in their pocket. And lastly, they may lounge with you through the tablet. So the theme here is that mobile is present in every single one of these experiences. That's why we have to focus on mobile. It doesn't matter if they're purchasing on mobile or if they're just researching. Take a look at these stats. Cross-device purchases are likely to grow if you start to look at the more developed economies who have had larger screens, who have had better connectivity. South Korea and Japan are close to 60% in cross-device purchases. So that means that the purchase took place through multiple devices. It may have been researched one place and then actually purchased in another. iShare is growing. If you look at the offline, the television, even though we have smart TVs today, the radio, and the print, here's where we were in 2011. This was just recently updated in April. Here's where we were in 2015. 33 to 47% on digital, 54% up. Now let's go into mobile and see how much. So 2011, that 33% corresponds to 70% desktop. And then in 2015, completely flips. So with that share come the sales. E-commerce is growing, we all know it, but it's actually cannibalizing desktop a bit. If you look at this. I personally think that these are completely understated, but they're saying by 2018, approximately 27% of US e-commerce sales will be done mobily. I think that's way short. You know, we used to think grandma or grandpa didn't shop online. They do now. And look how quickly it shifts. Now this is just 2015, Q1 and Q2. If you look across each of these categories, and I left off some, how much it shifted. The only category that hasn't is sporting goods. Not sure why, but every single one has shifted to mobile as a percentage of overall sales within e-commerce. And if you start to look at us compared to the rest of the world and the more developed smartphone economies, we got a long ways to go. Japan at 50%, South Korea at 50%. So that's why the 2018 number of 27% doesn't make much sense. Okay, so how is this happening? Why is this happening, and why is it worthwhile to understand? The first one, and it's the obvious one, is by 2020, 80% of this country and this world will have smartphones. The other thing to notice is that today, the majority of the US population already has 3+ connected devices. Scalability. Why do we see all these startups popping up with new platforms and ecosystems? It's pretty straightforward. You can light up Amazon Web Services tomorrow for fractions of a penny, and you've got a platform. You got a platform without building a server on site. Distribution. You can add your product to global sites very, very easily, very quickly. You know, Amazon, we lit up the TrimFit brand about 4 months ago, and already we're doing close to $1 million in sales on an annual basis. It was never even online, but now we're selling it in India, in China, in the US, in Canada. That's amazing. And then last is this on-demand piece, and we'll talk about it a bit when we get into the immediacy. But it's fueled by, for most part, contractors. Certain startups are now moving into actual part-time employees with benefits, but things like Uber and Ship and all these other are using contractors. Okay, so what's that created? It's created the most demanding, empowered, and powerful customer we've ever seen. And what are they demanding on part of us? The first thing to make us relevant, and I'm going to talk about, is Intrigue. This is all around personalization and mainly proximity. The second thing I'm going to talk about is immediacy. Guys like Amazon have conditioned the customer to expect the product to be there today and then pay nothing. The third thing is how do we make it the easiest possible transaction for a customer and make it completely frictionless so they don't second guess pressing buy. So, creating Intrigue. Why should I actually care about what you guys are selling? Why should I care about it when I see this much digital content in the world rolling up 50% year over year over year? Well, the first way in which I think you should pay attention is you should see where the traffic originates. This statistic shows where smartphone searches start. The first part is Google search. Not surprising. The second one is Safari search. So it's down to whoever has that iOS device and what their default search engine is. The third one is Chrome, which automatically defaults to Google. And then the fourth and the fifth is around maps and voice, things like Siri and Cortana. But then when you start to look at shopping, it completely changes. So those are general information searches. These are shopping searches. And it's pretty amazing. Amazon owns 45% of the shopping searches in the US. If you're not on Amazon, good luck as a brand. Where is the time spent of everyone? It's actually accelerating towards the apps. 86% of time spent in the full calendar year of 2014, it's going to be interesting to see 2015, is within apps. When you start to look at what they're actually doing, all we do is play around. We sit in gaming. Facebook has become more of a destination for all things news, personal, etc. We do a lot of messaging. And then when you break it down to the actual properties in which they're playing with, it's actually very, very tight. Facebook, incredibly, has 13% Google, Enterprise, etc. So we're playing around, we're in-app, and we're only at certain properties. How do you create intrigue? You create intrigue by being on those properties. You create intrigue by having experiences on those properties. But context is key. We started with banners, boring banners with low click-through rates that were never personalized. We started to add some personalization based on location and proximity. We then brought in what I'm calling brick tech, so in-store technology, in-restaurant technology, so that it was the micro environment and we were providing some level of personalization and context. And now we're taking all four of those and personalizing it in a way using proximity, using previous behaviors to drive context. There's nothing worse than receiving an ad or seeing an ad that has no context behind it. I know I sound like a Facebook fanboy, but they ran a survey recently where they asked 1,000 consumers who provides the most contextual and easy to grasp ads, and it was Facebook. It was Facebook by a wide margin. They are the one who has taken gender information, age, interests, and taken it in a way in which marketers have the easiest ability to make something contextual for you and relevant. Everyone else has failed thus far. So, Rover Labs, Rover, who is one of the groups that I'm very thankful to be a part of and work with, they, in my opinion, are probably the furthest on the beacon ecosystem path. And so what we thought we'd do is we'd put together a quick little video to show you the types of experiences that are already here today and how contextual, personal, relevant they can be. This first example is a quick path showing you a brick and mortar store, what you'd experience. You might feel like it's a bit similar to the beacon path that is implemented in a lot of the Apple stores. So, as you can see, you are within close proximity to this store on King Street. You are push notified. You are in-app. So you have this app today. You're told of what the in-store events are. You're given a brief overview of the time, the cost, and what will be discussed. You've got your first merchandise call out. You're back in-app. And now you start to see more around product. So one stat while you're watching this, 67% of people said that they don't want to talk to a store associate when they walk into a store. 67%. They want to do their own stuff. This is an example of how a shopping assistant in store could work. So you don't have to talk to that person. And keep in mind, as the profit margins of retailers and restaurants are being shrunk because of the offline impact, there will be less store associates in stores, less people to help those remaining 33% that want help. Again, more examples of the product and your ability to understand more about the product. But that's an in-store beacon experience in-app. Some of you who may follow the beacon world quite closely, you'll see that Google recently announced Eddystone. And Eddystone is their version of iBeacon. The interesting thing about Eddystone is that it can happen without having an app on your phone. And when you start to think about that you don't need the app to drive an experience like that, the opportunities are endless. Now, one more example. And the reason why we bring this, and it's not necessarily relevant to everyone in the room, is I think it's just a phenomenal way to show, again, the use of beacons to drive engagement. And I apologize, but Rover's based in Toronto, so that's why the whole Maple Leafs thing, kind of lame, John. Maybe you should have changed it for the audience. But check this out. Again, in-app, within the arena, you've got your immediate news, the starting lineup. You've got your first call out for product. Like, this is pretty cool, no? I think it's cool. Now you've got a call out for product if you've got a store within the arena. Offers around that. And of course, a scan, the ability to scan it. But very neat, very neat. Okay, so that's Intrigue, based on personalization and proximity. Two more. Immediacy. So back to that stat, the 67% that don't want to actually talk to anyone when they're in store. Let's talk about how we make self-sufficient expedited experiences. The first thing, what we know is that everyone's using their smartphone in stores, in restaurants. So let's not try and combat showrooming. Let's give up. It's done. They want to use them, let them use them. We also know if we don't have some way in which they can use them in store, they will leave. They'll go somewhere else, regardless of age. So stop combating showrooming. Based upon that notion, I think the quick service and fast casual has been the fastest to adopt new ways in which they experience the customers pre-ordering and then actual fulfillment of the product once they get in close proximity. The first one I would give an example of is Taco Bell. They were one of the first to call out buy online, pick up in restaurant. Their app, very clean, very simple, straight up shows the menu items, then allows you to add your payment profile information into it, so it's driving you through the purchase channel. And once you have completed, I did this example in Soho and New York, gives you the option to pick up in-store or through the drive-thru if it has a drive-thru. And you just click your app. And you walk up, it's got an email reminder, you walk up and they're already working on it since you've let them know about the in-store pickup. That's an example of something that not everyone will use. However, I think the uptake of this type of experience will get will start to drive very, very quickly. Cartwheel is another one that Target uses so that you're picking up curbside. Another example, and I think that this one is done even better, is from Square. It's built into their point of sale. Here's my Saturday coffee pickup in lovely Hell's Kitchen. It reminds you to turn on your Bluetooth. You turn on your Bluetooth when I'm within 1 square block. The barista on their point of sale automatically, Ryan's inbound, get his product ready. And then I've got a push notification if I haven't made it to the barista that just yet, letting me know that my order is ready. Like, that's pretty cool. That's an awesome experience. And I think more and more of that will start to happen. And it's going to be fastest and quick service and fast casual, mainly because they need to churn a lot faster. But eventually the department stores and the rest of them will likely pick it up. So let's talk a little bit about retail, since we talked about food quite a bit. Here's some examples of retailers that are doing a good job of providing that self-sufficient experience, that gives options and, more importantly, visibility. Nordstrom is very, very digitally savvy. They're probably one of the leaders, and you can probably see it in their earnings. You know, their earnings were up. Their sales specifically for online were up 20%. They're one of the few retailers that's posting a positive comp right now, except for the discounters. But as you can see in this final shopping bag, you've got many options. You've got expedited shipping, you've got saving it for later. You know, they're not worried about driving that purchase right then and there. They're more worried about keeping the relationship with you. Google's actually quietly been updating a lot of stuff. This is an example of something that I searched for, and they've let me know in close proximity to me who has it in stock. Not a lot of retailers are taking advantage of this, of sharing their inventory data with Google to broadcast this type of information, but it's very worthwhile for a lot of those. I think it was 34% of the searches start. Automated pickup options. Sears is very digitally savvy. They do a great job. I mean, I know that we like to cast a dark image on their sales and everything, but digitally they do a very good job. Very, very good job. And then lastly, our friends at Amazon. So they're providing that immediate expedited shipping that happens within an hour in parts of the country. Same day, foregone conclusion. Frictionless. So I thought this tagline at the top, "Don't you already know my credit card number?" helped summarize the experience of when you're in mobile, when you want to check out with someone you haven't checked out with before. It sucks, doesn't it? It really sucks. And it even sucks on, on a 6A. Like, it's just not fun. If you see a PayPal button, then it's okay. If you have already transacted with that retailer, then it's okay. So how do we ensure that we're providing frictionless experiences? What I like to do is take a look at what the others are doing and what platforms others are on, because that's where the majority of the people are. So let's take a couple examples. Seamless, Caviar, Uber. These guys, for the most part, are doing the lead generation, and they are doing the actual delivery for you within food service. If you're not on them as a small-time restaurant, you're not doing your day job. Then you take it down a notch and you start to look at some of these other guys like Cover, Happy, Reserve, Open Table. They not only are doing the lead generation, but they're also allowing you to experience different ways in which you interact with the restaurant in their particular location. Cover, you can easily split the bill utilizing Bluetooth beacons with whoever's within your party. Happy, you can auto set up your own happy hour and broadcast that to all your friends. You pick a bar in New York, you broadcast it to all your friends, they all show up for that one happy hour. Reserve, same type of thing. Never have to talk to the actual waiter. You can order on your phone, you can receive the actual bill on your phone, you can pay on your phone. And Open Table even took it further. They allow the lead generation, they allow you to order, they allow you to pay without talking or pay with Apple Pay, and then, oh, by the way, at the end, you can call up an Uber to pick you up, all within that app, that entire experience. Now you move it down into the grocers. Instacart, Deliv, Google Express, Amazon. All of these guys are providing, again, lead generation and actual delivery. Instacart and Whole Foods, phenomenal experience. Google Express, it's the only way I receive Costco now. And then lastly, you've got all your pay players. We all know Apple Pay. Apple Pay, I think, is probably getting a bad rap right now, mainly because the brick and mortar doesn't always work. However, in-app, it's a good experience for the most part. And for those big apps that I know that have implemented it, as a percentage of their overall Apple payments, it's 40 to 50%. So 40 to 50% of the iPhones that are shopping on apps like Spring, they are checking out through Apple Pay. Samsung Pay is coming, and PayPal is getting their stuff together now that they've split off from eBay. So my point in showing all these is these are big-time platforms that are providing reach, that are providing audience, that have transacted with all of these customers already. If you're not on them, then you're doing yourself a disservice. If you're not providing those experiences, you're doing yourself a disservice. Lower cart abandonment, pre-populated billing and shipping, and most importantly, they provide positive brand experiences. Stop worrying about the fact that they're not in your app and they're in somebody else's app. Stop worrying about that. Okay, last piece and then we can jump into questions. Social. Social is getting a bad rap and not being able to drive commerce. It's right. It hasn't. It's drawn terrible click-throughs. It's drawn terrible attribution. It has not done a good job. I think we're almost there. And here's a couple reasons why. The first reason why is this is the number one thing we spend our time on. Social networks. Per day, we spend more time on social networks than email. Given this and the app stats, I don't even know if we work. And social is mobile, right? Facebook is the lowest at 80 to 20% split. Then as we all know, we've got some that are almost 100%. Social is mobile. Okay, so the way I like to look at each one of these, and some of them we don't necessarily need to have up there, but I think just for context it's worthwhile. On the top, customer service. On the bottom, commerce. The right, personal sharing, and then left, news. And what I think is happening right now is everyone except for Facebook is making a bunch of money. And so they're figuring out beyond advertising, what else is it that I need to do? And it's drive commerce. It's drive commerce because they want a percentage of every single sale that happens as a result of their click-through. And likely what they'd like to have is that it happens on their site. So you see companies like Facebook partnering with Shopify, which is the small-time merchant platform. You see companies like Pinterest partnering with Shopify and Squarespace and these other guys because they want to make sure that they are driving that actual commerce. So Twitter historically started up in the customer service, right? It was the one you went to and you bitched about your flight being late like I did yesterday. But it's moving, and it's moving very quickly, mainly because of all the shareholder pressure it's got and the lack of profit. Pinterest is probably the best experience to drive a similar experience to walking through a store and coming upon something that you didn't know you wanted. Snapchat partnered with Square, so they are in payments now, but they aren't necessarily driving commerce. I think what we're going to see is their Discover tab is not working as well as they thought, and they're likely going to have to drive something else, and it's going to be commerce. And Facebook has moved all the way down, whether it's the beacons they've handed out for free just to get you to engage, or it's them partnering with companies like Shopify for the buy it buttons. And lastly, our friends at Instagram. They haven't done anything yet. They're a lot slower movers, But I think once they're done with this rollout of the ads, which is in the next month, full rollout of ads, I think they're going to flip the switch. They have to flip the switch because there's so many workarounds that are happening today with Instagram. So again, everyone's coming down into commerce. Everyone's spending their time on social media. We need to pay attention to it. It's not there yet, but it will be there. Oh yeah, these guys. Forgot about these guys. Okay, so in conclusion, we've got about 10 minutes for actual questions. I still believe we are in the beginning stages. I think mobile is a very, very bright place. I think if you look at the more developed economies in terms of smartphones, that lead impact that mobile is going to play, not only on research, browsing, transacting, and driving new experiences, we're at the beginning stages. There's more to come, a lot more to come. The second thing is the three pieces that I talked about at the start. Connectivity coming louder and prouder, tech through things like beacons, in-store tech, brick tech, and then most importantly, platform uptake, utilizing those various platforms we talked about at the very start, is going to drive the next level of brand experiences. You need to play a role. You need to be on them. And then third, focusing on these three pieces is what will actually create those that are going to do well in mobile versus those that won't. You need to intrigue because there's a lot of crap out there. You need to deliver immediacy, self-sufficient experiences, and make it actually frictionless so that they're not double questioning that click to buy. They're not saying, hey, I've never transacted with you. I don't want to input and create a new profile. I'm not going to buy. So that's everything. Any questions? We've got 2 mics that we can walk around with. Oh, that's a familiar face. Go easy on me.
I was really interested in the thanks for your presentation of the stats that you kind of threw out up front. I'm kind of interested, though, in understanding, do you have any sense of the profitability of mobile in terms of, with all this activity and with all this growth in terms of customer adoption and those kind of elements, when retailers and restaurants start to adopt their mobile solutions, is there any sense or any feel for what the business impact of mobile has been, and how long, how much, and how soon?
So I think that the majority of the retail, good question, very good question. The majority of retailers today, the way in which they understand the profitability of mobile is directly on conversion. So if you think about stores, if you think of that very first slide, whoops, if you think of that very first slide that had the various channels in which we're interacting, stores, for the most part, within retail, make anywhere from 10 to 22% in EBITDA margins. Mobile, for the most part, of those that are willing to share it, it's anywhere from 5 to 12%. Now that's direct purchase, right? So that's the ones that we know we have the higher return rates. We have to pay the cost of fulfillment, direct purchase. What we don't have a good understanding of is how much of the store is driven by the mobile, how much of the other tablet, desktop, et cetera, is driven by the mobile. So to isolate it and just look at that 5 to 12%, which is the less profitable channel, I think you're shortchanging yourself. Come on, no other questions? That amazing first song. Who was that song, David? Run DMC. Wow. I thought you were going to play Dr. Dre's new album. It's been the first one in like 11 years.
Good morning. You talk about the importance of digging deep and understanding the consumer behavior and so on, but my question is more about generalities from the teachings you gave us this morning. Can we transcend those across North America and say, if you pretty well follow this map that I gave you today, then you can poke that anywhere throughout North America?
Not entirely. I mean, I think these are generally guiding principles. However, each one of us and every single company within this room is at a different point in their maturation cycle relative to mobile, relative to digital, relative to in-store experiences. So I think generally if you follow words like intrigue, immediacy, and frictionless commerce based on your current adoption, you should be headed in the right way. So I think of it more as guiding principles, not necessarily the Bible or not necessarily the way that you should follow. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
So I was your comment about, I think it was the Canadian hockey thing where the interaction could happen without having a mobile app on your phone.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, where do you think, are mobile apps a transitional point or are they an endpoint? And what do you think the technology on a mobile phone will look like in 2 to 5 years?
So the guy that actually developed that experience is on your table. You're lucky today. All right. So I think, oh boy, this is probably moving into the next panel that we're talking about. I truly think of mobile apps just as formalized and bastardized bookmarks. It's no different than 10 years ago when Netscape Navigator gave us bookmarks and we said we want to save these pages. I think the macro environment with T-Mobile pushing everyone for unlimited data and lack of actual phone plans, don't worry, this is getting somewhere, and us having more apps, and Apple hopefully in the next week when they announce the new iPhone eliminating the 16 gig phone, us having more space, more connectivity, I think the likelihood is that we will shift that 86% of app time to probably 90 to 95 eventually. What do those experiences look like? I think they're going to more formally just look like the experiences that we're used to on desktop in a way in which they're pulling every single sensor that you've got on the phone differently. So you didn't have things like accelerometers. You didn't have the context around what the weather was. You didn't have any of that actual information, your placement within 5 centimeters of where you actually are. And so each one of those is going to drive a new experience. What that looks like, I couldn't even tell you. What I will tell you is the pace at which it's moved has been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible. That doesn't answer your question entirely, but I'd love to chat with you after. What else? You can't ask 2 questions.
Only when nobody else is asking questions. So, in your experience, are there any signs of like mobile fatigue? Are customers getting kind of tired of running out of space on their phones, or just getting tired of a gazillion apps and flipping in, installing, deinstalling?
Formally, is there any sign of mobile fatigue? I think it was a Golden State Warrior that actually, what did he say? He had iPhone 6S thumbitis or something like that. So I think that's the only fatigue I've heard about. I think if you look at the actual stats, the number of apps that people have has stayed about flat. I also think if you look at the stats of those apps that have been featured, there's too many apps out there right now for you to be successful with just launching. And so if you think about Apple featuring you as an app, what you find is you see a tremendous download ratio, but then you don't see any stickiness whatsoever. It just declines really, really quick. So I think that there is a bit of fatigue, and it's all consolidating into those certain properties, and that consolidation will probably go even further. If you talk about properties, all the traffic's moving to a couple. If you talk about singular apps, you look at the Facebooks of the world, they've broken up each one of their services. You look at Googles of the world, they've broken up all those services. So I think there's app property fatigue, but not necessarily app fatigue. That's a third question. Did he pay his registration or is he free?
So in light of what you just said then, what's the right thing to do then? Give up on your own app and jump to one of these points of consolidation?
He's stealing your entitled panel. I think it's all three. I think, every single talk I've ever done, no customer is the same. You're going to have those loyal app customers. You're going to have those mobile customers that come across you through the mobile site. And then lastly, you've got all these customers that will never ever hear about you because 45% of them are going straight to Amazon. 45% of them are going straight to Seamless as a restaurant. So you have to play all three of them. It's unfortunate, but those are the three channels we have to play in. We do. And there's going to be some that do and some that don't. 1 minute.
I got a slightly different topic for you. As you gave some good examples on beacon-based experiences, what are your thoughts on what I'm just going to label some of the alternative proximity technologies that are out there to beacons, things like magnetic, or other just things that are coming out like that we hear folks say, might be a better option than beacons. What are your feelings on those?
Yeah, so beacons I think are the other than probably Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi you still got a lot of issues. Beacons are probably the furthest along. They've hit that catalyst where you've seen guys like Facebook talk about them. You've finally gotten Google on the map. I don't think it really matters. I think what matters is that you are utilizing in-store tech, brick tech in some shape or form, that you realize you can drive completely different experiences than you could before. And if you're not doing that, then you're doing yourself a disservice. If it's a combination of Bluetooth, if it's a combination of Wi-Fi, if it's a combination of even cell coverage in stores, you should be figuring out the experience and you should make it as easy as possible. The days of Apple or Google forcing Bluetooth on, they're going to come. They're eventually going to come. So the horse that I like to pick is the one that I think that is the most evolved for right now, but you never know. Is that it? Thank you guys. Appreciate it.